everyone, welcome to Hedgehog Hollow. I'm so thrilled to be back here with Ellen Hutson as one of her guest designers. Today we're going to be creating with the new Tonic Studios Dream in Colour release in conjunction with her wonderful March release stamps. I've chosen to use this Backyard Bird Friends because I thought it was so cute. And I so often need a new home card and I never have one actually made. So I thought we'll make one together today. So I'm going to be using a couple of these fantastic new stamps. So let's stamp those out first of all. I'm going to be using one of these gorgeous birds. So let's pick one off. And I'm also going to use this beautiful branch. So let's stamp those out first of all. Pop that on here. I'm going to use my Gina K Amalgam ink. Now the reason I like using the Amalgam is because I can use any medium afterwards. So if I want to use Copics, I can. If I want to use watercolors, I can do that. If I want to use colored pencils with Gamsol, I can do that. If I want to use colored pencils and Copics, I can do that. You really can use any medium, and that's the fantastic thing about using the Amalgam ink. And then I'm also going to stamp out my little bird here. Again, we'll stamp that with our Amalgam. Just make sure. And my Amalgam is very well loved. You can get it in a full pad or in a cube. There we go. I'll put my stamp away. I'll be using that ink block, the acrylic block rather, later on too. Pop that back in here. And now I'm going to die cut these out. So the one thing I really also love about Ellen's stamps is they all come in these nice thick pockets. They come labelled, so I don't have any labelling to do. And all of her dies come on a magnetic sheet. So really, really easy for storage and for putting back into your stash. Now I'm going to just grab my wire cutters here, and I've got to work out which bird I want to die cut. I think it's this one. Yes, it is. So all you do is you can either just wiggle them backwards and forwards apart like this, which is easy. For the ones in the middle, I just grab my little wire cutters and you just snip them out. So simple. And I can just snip those bits out here. And because I have magnet already in my pack, I can take that small piece and it's going to stick straight in there. I'm not going to lose any of my small dies. And I also want to use this little branch. And for the large ones, I find that it's a lot easier to just do that. I'm making sure I've got the right branch because it would not be the first time I've picked out the wrong die, trust me. So again, I'm going to pop that back in. And I'm just going to add a little bit of tape to hold them in place. Now you can use post-it tape, masking tape, there's lots of different options. I really like a bit of post-it tape because it's nice and temporary, it's not going to harm your paper. So the great thing is you can position your dies over your stamped image and you can see the outline of your stamped image so you know whether you've got it in the right place or not. And then pop your tape down. The same on your branch. Again, just pop your post-it tape down and then we're going to run that through our Gemini machine. So I'm just going to run this through. Pop your sandwich down and then we can run it through. So I like the Gemini Junior machine because it's fully automatic. So I can just pop it in. Now, if you're wondering why I have tape around some of my pads, I do a lot of classes at stores and I find it a lot easier to tape my sandwiches together and then people only have to worry about putting the two pieces together. So that's the reason I have tape around my mats. So we have all of that done. Now I'm going to grab a piece of watercolor paper and I'm going to grab the Nuvo Embellishment Mousse. So these are two new colors that come in the Dream in Color. So we have Triple Berry and Chai Latte. I love these two colours, and the great thing about Embellishment Mousse is you have a shimmer in it too. This one was just ready to go for me. So I'm going to grab this onto here, but I don't really need all of this. I'm only going to take a little bit. and I'm going to pop the rest back. Now, one thing I'm going to say about using embellishment mousse is you really don't need to put your finger in there, because if you pop your finger in and then you go back later on, you're not always going to be guaranteed of having any nasty. Always use a spatula, a palette knife, something else in there. Don't ever spray water in there if you can help it. Take a little bit out, pop it onto your surface, whether that's the Tim Holtz Glass Mat, which is what I always work on, a tile, a piece of plastic, anything else. But I really don't recommend popping water into here or anything like that. Always take a bit out and work on a surface. So I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to grab a paintbrush, and I have a little cup of water here. I'm just going to create a fun splatter background. So I'm just going to water some of this down. A little bit more water. And I'm using some of the silver paintbrushes that Ellen has. These really are the best paintbrushes you can get. I was converted to these by Sandy Allnock. And so you can see what I'm doing is just flicking my paintbrush off the edge. And what it does is it gives you a really pretty splatter technique. And it's a super easy splatter too. Greg's standing back because he doesn't want to get covered in splatters. But it does give you a very pretty and easy background. And you're going to have a little bit of shimmer because the mousses contain mica. And I'm just going to grab my heat tool, and I'm grabbing my Ranger Heat It tool because it's not going to move any of my liquid around. And I'm just going to dry this off. It just adds a little bit of visual interest. So rather than having a white piece of cardstock, I'm going to have something that looks nice and pretty in the background. And I'm going to clean off my paintbrush. Make sure this is nice and dry, because we're going to stamp over the top of this, so I don't want it to be wet. The other thing with the Ranger tool is you're less likely to scorch your paper, which I also like, because I have been known when I'm drying watercolour in particular, because it can take a little bit longer to dry because you want all the water to evaporate. The other thing is this has a lower airflow than, say, your Wagner heat tool, so it's not going to move any of your splatters around. So when you've got that perfect splatter pattern, this isn't going to move anything around. Another reason I really like using this tool for drying watercolours. There we go. So that's nice and dry. So I'm just going to move that off to the side for a second. And now I'm going to grab these two pieces, and I'm going to take that same paintbrush we were just using and my acrylic block, and I'm just going to add just a dab of colour. Just into those flowers. So I'm not adding much. So with the mousses, you really can do a lot with them. You can paint with them. You can dissolve them into a spray bottle and create a mist with them. You can use them with a spatula through a stencil. You can paint with them and create your own metallic watercolours. You can mix colours together and create new colours. There are just so many different things you can do with them, which is why I love working with them, because they're super versatile. I'm kind of just going to go for a messy kind of look, but just adding a little bit of colour to my flowers. Just like this. So easy. Then I'm going to clean my paintbrush off. Just like that. And I'm going to open up that chai latte. This is a brand new one. I actually went through an entire chai latte mousse in preparation for Creativation. This is so pretty. It's slightly translucent, and I ended up putting it all over all sorts of different things. I created unicorns. I created all sorts of different things with it. I'm only going to use a tiny bit, so I'm actually just going to use my tweezers, and then I'm going to pop it on the palette area, my mat here. I put it through all sorts of different stencils. It's also a really nice shade to just water things down. I'm going to pop a little bit down my branch here. It's not quite white, it's just a really nice light cream, so that's my branch done. And I'm going to add a little bit on my bird here. So it just stops things looking too white. And you can check out our booth tour of Tonic at Creativation. And you can check out, I did a video for Ellen previously. And you can mix two colours together. So I'm going to mix some of this bright pink into this peachy colour and create something a little bit lighter, which I'm now going to add to the beak. I did a post on the Nuvo Expanding Mousse that she has in the store. You can check that out too. That's a really fun thing. So there is a difference between this embellishment mousse and the expanding mousse, because the expanding mousse you can heat and it bubbles up. So just add a little bit of fun there to our bird as well. Move my paintbrushes to the side and I'll pop my lid on. And I'll pop that to the side. I'm just going to move my mat out the way while I do my mounting because I have all of my paint on it. So I'm just going to move that forward. And now we're going to mount up our card. So I have everything here ready to go. I'm going to grab some adhesive. So I have a card base here. This is half a sheet of 8.5 by 11 white, and I have a piece of black cardstock they've already cut down. So this here is 4 inches across and 5 1/4 down. I'm just going to use some double-sided tape, and you can use whatever your favorite double-sided tape is. And so what you want to do is I always mount my cards with this flat, and then you want to mat, if you make sure these 3 sides are nice and even, then your 4th one at the bottom is also going to be even. And now I'm going to mount this piece on. And so I've already pre-cut my watercolor cardstock before the video, and that was cut down to 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And so again, you want to mat 3 sides and automatically your 4th one is going to be correct. And then I'm going to close that up and we can position our piece on here. And then I'll stamp my sentiment as the last piece. So I'm going to grab some of my big mama roll of foam that I get from Ellen, and I want my non-stick scissors so I can cut pieces down accordingly. So I'm going to pop some on the back of my flowers, and what you want to do, so what I do is I cut big strips and then I cut them down. So this is one that I'd cut previously on a different project, and then I pop them on the edge of my roll here, and when I need them I then just pick one off and it's ready to go. You can see this is nice and easy to use. And the reason I use a non-stick scissor like the Tim Holtz scissors is because, like here where I want to cut down into an even thinner piece, I can do that and my foam doesn't stick to my scissor, which is really nice. So because here I want a nice thin piece on my branch. And if, like me, you really struggle to get the top piece off your foam, if you grab the craft pick, which Ellen also has, you can really easily get that release paper off the top, just like this. Like so. So I'm going to position this round about just under the middle of the card because I'm going to want to put my sentiment over here somewhere. And then we're going to add some foam to the back of our bird. We'll probably use the rest of this piece up. and cut that in half. So that's how I use my scraps of foam. So I never waste any of my foam pieces, even if I have to cut them down to much smaller to make them fit. Just like that. And again, just pick off the release there. You can see how easy the craft pick makes it too. And so I'm going to stick my bird up here. Then I'm going to grab my MISTI. And inside of my MISTI I have a sticky sheet, and if you want to find out about my sticky sheet tip, you can check the top right hand corner for how and why I do this. It just means I have no more magnets inside of my MISTI, which I just love that tip. I'm going to grab my stamp set out of here, and so I'm going to do a nice nest because I think that's perfect for a new home, just like this. Again, I'm going to grab my Amalgam ink. Stamp that second time. And the other thing you can do is if you want to highlight some areas on the bird afterwards, you could just grab yourself a fine liner, which I think I might do afterwards, and I'll just highlight a few of those areas where I've gone over it with the mousse. The other thing you can do is you can do some extra stamping. So we could stamp with this, and we could just make the other piece come in here. We could add some details in if we wanted to. I might just have a branch coming in the other side too. Make sure you remove your nice nest. We don't want anything extra. Or we could add an extra sentiment. Home is where the birds sing. Actually, that might be a second nice sentiment. We can add that in. You see my card sticks down. I don't have to use any magnets or anything. She just love like this. And you could add a second bird. Perhaps we could add, actually I think I will add this just over here. But we can use a stamp off technique, we can use masking. So if you want to add details afterwards, but you don't want to use that there, you can grab that post-it tape I showed you earlier and just pull a piece off. I'm going to pick up my stamp. I'm going to pop my post-it tape along the edge of my white cardstock, so it's not going to stamp on my card base or anywhere else. So if you always want to add details afterwards, this is a great way to do it. I'm also going to grab that scrap piece of cardstock we had earlier, because trust me, this is my card making process and we all want to add things afterwards. And then we want to do the stamp off technique, so it's a little bit lighter. Also gives us a way to trial the idea of the stamp. So we can just stamp. We can say, do we like that stamp? Yes, I think we do. We can lift it up. We can press down. And then now we have a lighter stamp on the side. So now I can lift this up. And you see I have no sticky. And there I have my finished card. So isn't that a fun card? Super simple, and lots of ways to use the embellishment mousse. You can use the embellishment mousse as a spray, you can use it through a stencil, you can use it as a metallic watercolor. So many different things you can do with it. And then we can also add some of the new Nuvo drops if we want to as a little finishing touch. So I think I'll just add a couple of these. This is the new Calming Aqua. So this will add a nice kind of complement. Again, we can just add a little dot here and a dot here. And I'm also going to add one of the new jewel drops. This is the Honeysuckle, which I really love this color. and the jewel drops are a little bit more translucent. There's also a download available. Again, if you check that top right hand corner, you can find out the download for all the different types of drops and what the difference is between them. Also just going to add a couple down here. And there's also a tutorial available for making your own enamel dots. So you can take Nuvo drops and you can very easily create your own enamel drops that are available just to stick on your cards, which I love that idea too. So there we go. So there's some fun knots. I'm not going to hold this up too high just in case they start to drip forward. So I'm going to lay that flat to dry. But you'll be able to see the card in the pictures available on Ellen's blog. So hop on over there. And also all of the supplies I used are in the video description below. Thank you so much for joining me here on Ellen's blog. I hope you've enjoyed today's video tutorial. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell for all of our videos. We have new videos of tips, tricks, tutorials, and 2-minute tips every single day here at Hedgehog Hollow. And if you enjoyed this tutorial, including how to add things to your cards afterwards, even once you think you're finished, but you might want to add something after, and also the versatility of the Nuvo Embellishment Mousse, do give us a thumbs up. I'll see you again tomorrow. Happy stamping. Bye.